One shot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to your podcast, Mind the Time, where we delve into a year as chosen by our guest. I am joined, as always, by co-host Brendan Mahan.
Hello, everybody.
And Sean Carey.
Hello.
How are you getting on, lads?
Not too bad, sir. It's a fine evening out there.
It is a fine evening. I was just thinking that on the way over. I was thinking, here comes the summer.
An Aye,
Blue skies. That leads us on to our guest this week. We have musician, radio producer, presenter, punk rocker, and an undertone. Of course, it is Mr. Michael Bradley. How are you doing, Mickey?
Oh, it's great to be here. It is very nice to be here.
It's an absolute honour to have you here. Absolute honour.
I'm just getting the here comes the summer.
There you go.
Very good.
Because for anybody listening, it's going to be out about a week's time since we've been recording. We've had rain, we've had hailstones, and now Mickey's joined us, and the skies are blue.
Yeah, and everything's good because I'm here.
Everything's good because Mickey's here. Brilliant. So, Mickey, the year 1979 is your year, and what a massive year it was for yourself.
Absolutely, it was my year as a pop star.
It was the start of it.
Only lasted 1 year. Yeah, 1979 was great because we, as the band, we started it by making the first record, our first LP. You know, we had 3 months or 2 months of professional musicianship.
Wow!
At the end of 78, and then 79 was great.
And then that was the start of the album. So even a lead up to 1979. So the band formed in 1975.
Yeah.
Am I right?
I joined in 74, but we got Fergal in 75. So I think that's where we're aiming our 50th anniversary stick.
All right,
nice.
Next year.
Yeah.
I'm just making that up. I just realised, haven't said that to anybody, but it would work.
You heard it here first, folks.
It actually work. The golden year. So we started at school. We started at school where I was at St. Peter's and Billy was at St. Peter's and Fergal was at St. Peter's. One of our teachers was Joe Mahan.
Oh, the great Joe Mahan.
That's where we gave him his grey hair. No, he was very good. I'm not just saying, but he was great. Great teacher. So we were at St. Pete's, and John and Damien O'Neill were at St. Colum's College. They hated St. Colum's College. They hated school, but we kind of liked it. That's the difference in the two schools.
The college has that reputation then, doesn't it? It was just a wee bit a harder place to be.
No, it's just full of tubes.
Full of tubes.
And the teachers were awful too.
There wasn't enough Joe Mahans.
No.
So whose idea was it to form the band?
Well, I think it was John and Billy. I first heard about it in 1974 whenever I used to walk home for my lunch down to our house, and Vinnie O'Neill who lived in Beechwood. We lived in Broadway in Craigan. Vinnie would. We'd walk down, so we used to talk about things. He was in my class, and I remember one time Vinnie says, we have a group too," because Vinnie was in the band with John and Billy. I thought this is very impressive. I've never met anybody who was in a band ever, not a teenager,
Oh yeah.
And so I round about May 74, I started hanging around their house too, but I was never in the band, you know. And but we used to listen to records all the time, and John and Billy and Vinnie would talk about this group. There's a couple of other fellas in it as well, but I've never seen them in that context. I know them, but they were sort of never actually there, and nothing was ever done, and that throughout that summer we decided we were going camping in Bundoran.
Nice.
And one of the things you did, me and Vinnie decided as we needed money to go camping. I don't know what Billy and John were going to do for money, but anyway, me and Vinnie decided. We decided we were going to paint people's yards.
Great plan.
Whitewash yards. Because we done his granny's, and his granny gave him £2 for it, and we thought, this is great, £2. And we even put an ad in the Belfast Telegraph.
Wow!
Right. Yeah. And so we got jobs, and we did it. We always charged about £2. I think someone forced us to take £4. It's just £2 ridiculous. So anyway, so all that was going on at the same time. We were listening to records and talk. They were talking about the band, but whenever we got to Bundoran, camping in Bundoran, I remember we were all sitting in the tent one night. Eating beans and sausages and all that. And they were talking about the band, and Billy turned to me and says, "Do you want to be in the group?"
Wow.
And I went, Aye. Yeah, great. And, that was it. That was it. It wasn't like, well, this is what you do. This is what they just.
You're in.
They just talked about something else then. So that was me in.
Were you already playing at that time? Or?
I could play a couple of chords taught by Paul Elder, a teacher at St. Peter's.
Right.
And John could play chords and Bully could play chords, but Bully really liked the drums. Bully would have hit anything, you know. He loved that. And Vincent, he could play guitar as well. You know. Didn't have a singer, obviously. We didn't have any songs. Didn't even know how to play any songs. It was just, we have a group.
You just knew you were on a band.
That's the best place to start.
Great start.
Absolutely, yeah.
Where did you practice?
In O'Neill's house.
On O'Neill's house.
22 Beechwood Avenue.
Wow.
And that was in the front room sometimes, whenever it was just a couple of acoustic guitars. And then whenever, about 1975, we got a singer, Fergal Sharkey, who was in Billy's class at school. And we got amplifiers as well. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Fergal, and Fergal's father took John and possibly Bully to Reynolds Music in Rafo.
Right.
And at this stage as well, we had got a Provident check for something like £200 because they took Provident checks. So they came back. Like I remember, I was at St. Pete's and Vinny was saying, they're way up today. This is like while we were at school. They had obviously left school or taking the day off or whatever. They all went up and they came back with a bass amplifier and a bass guitar, and I think there was a wee drum kit, and there was a couple of amps too.
Class.
And that was us then. That was, we were right. We are now loud. We are now loud. So we went up to John's bedroom. So we plugged in there, and we used to make a terrible racket. And then the following summer 76, we practiced in what we called Sims's Shed, Craigan Street in Derry's, the old Craigan Street opposite the cathedral. My brother is married to a Tractor Sims, and that was her mother's house. And my sister was going with the Tractor's brother, so it was the double bind. It was like DNA, the double bind. So Patrick Sims, who was Josephine's boyfriend, he says, "Do you want to practice in the shed?" And it sounds. I always feel odd describing it because it was actually stables.
Wow.
But that sounds like it was a grand estate.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the old terrace.
Craigan estate.
Old terrace houses. Yeah. Old terrace houses. There was like a brick sort of construction, and they obviously were originally stables. You know. It wasn't a fancy house, but they just had it. So they used to have their dog lived in it. Sparky Sims lived in it, and they used to used to play in it.
Yeah,
you know, they used to play in it. So in the summer of '76, we got down, and Fergal had at this stage. Fergal had joined Radio Rentals. He got a job with the Radio Rentals. So you wouldn't remember the big boxes of the TVs came in, and they were always packed with white expanded polystyrene, and we thought, soundproofing. This is great, you know. That's actually wasn't bad. Terrible risk of fire.
Yeah.
We all have died horrible deaths. So we get that. We nailed it up on the wall of Sims's Shed, and we put blankets on it, and we put the amplifiers in, and we were there. I would say we're there for the next year at least. And that's kind of between that and John and Damien's bedroom, or Damien and Vinny's bedroom actually, which is the very top of O'Neill's house. That's kind of where we learnt everything, you know.
So what records which you've been listening to then? I suppose it was all covers you were doing then.
Doing covers.
Practicing.
Yeah. There's a couple of, you know, whenever I first went down there, John had a great collection of LPs. You know, this is 1974. Vinny was into the Beatles. Vinny loved the Beatles. And John had all the kinds of weird records, you know, quote unquote weird records that you would have heard from John Peel or from listening to or from reading the NME. So he read the NME every week. And, you know, I still remember that he had a record by Fred Frith, English guitarist who played in a band called Henry Cow. You're talking early 70s here, you know. He had Greenslade, another band that you never hear of, a band called Home. And he had, I think he had Fleetwood Mac's Greatest Hits. You know, the Peter Green Fleetwood
Peter Green,
Mac.
yeah.
And Faust. They had Faust. And he had all these things which, you know... he also had the Doors. I get a Doors because we started listening to the Doors. This is like 74, 70. So there wasn't that much. But the big LP for us, whenever we started learning songs, was the Rolling Stones' Get Your Ya-Ya's.
Oh, wow.
Oh, right.
And we learned about 4 or 5 songs.
Yeah, yeah.
And then 76, then we got the Ramones' first LP. We borrowed it from Donald McDermott, who we met through various people. So he had that, and he had the Stooges' second LP, and he had the New York Dolls' second LP. So we learnt all that, and that's kind of that's how we developed by the end of 76. But I'm going away in the future here. Or in the past. Whatever.
So the Ramones now would have been huge influences on you in the punk scene. That's
huge influence, as in we completely stole everything.
that's what influences do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We all take a wee bit of everything. And then writing, when did you start writing songs? So it was John O'Neill that's done the writing?
John, about 1976, John had a song called I Told You So, which was a Dr. Feelgood ripoff, really. It's only a 3-chord thing, but, you know, now you could, once you get to be adult and you play in bands, you can nearly make that up, you know, within half an hour. But because it was the first thing we ever did, it was such a feat.
It must have been an amazing feeling.
It was completely, you know, it was a very simple song, but it was like, that's a song, and that was the first one he wrote. That I think it possibly was the first one he wrote that he showed us, and we learnt, you know. So, but then after that, by about 76, 77, by 77 especially, John would have been writing songs. He always says he wrote songs because it was easier than learning other people's songs.
Brilliant.
Which is a good line, a very good line. I've never questioned him too closely on it, you know. So so that would have been John, and then by start of 78, in fact by May, June 78. Billy and myself had started trying to write songs too, you know, so...
It was yourselves that wrote My Perfect Cousin?
Well, of course, I wasn't going to erase that, but yeah.
Now that you've said it. Sure, now that you've said it.
Damien and I still, even, you know, we are men in our 60s, and we still say, Damien, did we ever have a top 10 hit? Yes, we did. With My Perfect Cousin, got to number 9, 1980.
Brilliant.
Did we write that? We did.
So who was the Perfect Cousin?
Yeah.
Well, there's a story for you. I think it's acknowledged.
I've been told this, whether or not it's true or not, I don't know.
What have you been told?
Kevin Downey.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who was John and Damien's cousin.
Yep.
And he, you know, thankfully no one listens to this in Derry. so I can say, I know, it was one of those things, you know, whenever you're about 17, 18, and you kind of, you know, you take notions about things. You know, I think he was in the Young SDLP or something, or he was always kind of like that. But then, whenever it came to us, Damien and I writing the song, it then, obviously, it's not about him.
No.
You know, that was the initial kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I remember whenever I was a child as well, I had been compared to some cousins, not in any malicious way, but just, you know, my mother would have mentioned about cousins of mine who would have been grand, good people, you know, or good teenagers helping their parents, and you know,
perfect cousin.
They weren't even that perfect, but it's one of those things that kind of spurs it, you know, and just gives you the notion for it, you know. So I felt the need to explain that.
Oh, everyone's got that perfect cousin, and if you don't know who that perfect cousin is, it's probably you.
I was 16 working in home base in Drumahoe, my first job, and I remember there was a whole thing going around the shop that the person who the song was written about was in the shop.
Really?
And like everybody was coming up going, that's him, that's your man, that's your man who wrote My Perfect Cousin about.
I used to feel bad about it because people used to say that, and I would kind of go, yeah, and then I go, oh, please don't say anything.
Oh, no, it's a hilarious song. It's a brilliant song.
Yeah.
That's a great song.
It could be worse.
Exactly.
It could have
went easy on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how much input, like with the writing process for the first album, like was it mostly John for the first album? Just
Mostly John. I was always the kind of one that would have gone in to write some words. You know, although also, I remember myself and Damien, we would have written some of the songs, basically sat on his sofa in O'Neill's front room and just work out, you know. I used to go down and in the summer of 78, I think I used to go down and we used to say, right, we're going to try and write songs. Because John would have done it on his own, but then occasionally John would have done a song and says, I need some words, or, you know, you would, when we were playing it, you would make up a middle bit. You know, you say we need this. Some people say bridge and all that, and middle six. It was always just a middle bit. For us. We need a middle bit, and then you just fire things round, you know, and see what do you think? What do you think?
That sounds good.
That sounds good. Okay, do that. So then you would have, whenever we made the first LP, then we had to formalise that kind of, you know. I remember the manager coming to. So who wrote Male Model?
Very important.
And it was like me and Damien and I think John did a bit as well. All that stuff, you know.
You're all looking around at each other, kind of.
Well, kind of, yeah. So that would have been my input. And funny enough, I remember as well sometimes whenever we were making the record, second record possibly, but I remember you know, you do all the backing tracks and you kind of do a guide. Fergal was singing a guide vocal, but sometimes the guide vocal was the same verse. And I remember I was thinking, I remember being in bed the night before he was supposed to do the singing with a notepad, you know, and I remember thinking, this is just like homework. This is like doing your homework the night before the school. You know? If there had been a school bus, I would have been doing it in the backseat of the school bus. So there was a bit of that in it too.
Yeah. So, and then what was your first performance as a band? I know obviously the Casbah is such a huge.
There's two. We have two first performances, if that's possible. The first performance we ever did was in a wee scout hall at the bottom of Craig and Broadway, because Fergal was a scout leader.
That's right. I remember hearing that.
The scout. There was a scout hall down there, and he wanted us to do a show in front of somebody. So because we had been we had organised to play the first show, the official first show, which was in St. Joseph's School, 16th of March 1976. So we knew we were doing that. That was organised through a friend of O'Neill's, and he was a teacher at St. Joe's. So Fergal very wisely says we should practice in front of people.
Yeah.
So the people that he had was his scout troop.
Class.
Wayne's. It must have been about 8 or 9 years old, and we were in this, like, it was at the Scout Hall. It was like the old St. Mary's Boys Club. It was basically a wooden hut, you know, with a wee stage. It's about maybe 10 inches high, and we set up there, and we only knew 6 songs really, but we did, you know, Jumpin' Jack Flash by the Rolling Stones. We did Dr. Feelgood Back in the Night. So we did all this R&B, and for these Waynes. And at the end of it, there was a stage invasion.
Is that right?
Amazing.
They thought it was great.
Did they get a wee badge for it?
No, they didn't. They should have. Just realising.
The Undertones badge.
Yeah. Dub. But it was so that was that. Then as I say, that was kind of a preparation for the show, and it was like a variety show. Obviously it was for St. Patrick's Day holiday.
I was going to say 16th of March.
16th of March, yeah. And I always remember it too, because it was the day Harold Wilson, the Prime Minister of the UK, he resigned. And I remember coming down, he said, Sandy D, you know, we were down to pick up the gear. Harold Wilson resigned. I was like, they don't care.
We've enough going on here.
We've enough going on. So that was that. We did 6 shows. It was great.
Were you the Undertones? Did you always don that name, or was there?
Which is another story, because the St. Joseph's show.
Yeah.
There was a man called Pat McNabb, who was a teacher at the school. He was the MC. Yeah. And there was a couple of people. There was a band on before us, and there was a couple of people, you know, playing acoustic guitars. And in my head, there was an Irish dancer. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe there wasn't. Well, we were sort of, we were standing there ready, and he was at the microphone, and he says, "What do you call the band? What's the name of the band?" And we didn't have a name. And Fergal says, the Hot Rods.
Hot Rods. Yeah.
And there was a band in England called Eddie and the Hot Rods.
Right.
Yeah.
And we were like, we all looked at each other. And the Pat McNabb says, "Right, boys and not boys and girls, right, boys. band called the Hot Rods. we played Jumping Jack Flash and all. So after that, we a couple of months later, we did a show. We were doing a show in the Top of the Hill Youth Club.
Oh.
I was at the Waterside, a youth club over here. Over here in the Waterside.
The foreign land.
I've heard that.
The watery shook.
Passport stamp.
Hey, Fergal called us Little Feet for that one.
Little Feet.
And there's an American band called Little Feet at the time. So later on that summer, Billy was looking through it because we kind of knew we needed, not that we had any shows to do, but we needed a name. So Billy looking through a history book and he saw the word Undertones. And I remember Fergal and I and Fanny had gone down to a scout camp in Dublin whenever we came back in O'Neill's house, because that's basically where we all hung out, where we all lived. And Billy says, the Undertones got a name for that. I thought it was great. I thought it was great because it was very unlike any other Derry band at the time. Bands in Derry had stopped calling themselves the somethings, and also it sounded really corny. So I liked that about it. Undertones.
Undertones.
And also, possibly the most important thing, it rhymed with the Ramones. So
Well played.
So that was the name.
Yeah.
That was the name. And that was it. Yeah. So we did about 3 or 4 shows without a name, so it's not bad, you know.
That's all right.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. Like just that moment of looking through a book and seeing that word, and then now that it's a name that's synonymous with music in Ireland, and Derry, and UK.
Yeah. Obviously, we weren't there when the name was coined, so it's different for us. But I just think I can't imagine he's been called anything else. You know, Undertones is just, and I even feel like the word Undertones is the perfect name to suit that style of music. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
It's in there. It's just in there. Do you know?
I know what you mean, because I think you're right. The word, especially around there, the word undertone has a different meaning now because of that, you know. And it does suit us. It really does. 100%. I couldn't imagine it's called anything.
No.
And we didn't even have any serious alternatives for it. I was just reading today about REM, because that's around about this time of year, 1980, they played for the first time under the name REM.
Right.
Before that, they played and they had different names, and some of the names were really awful. It's like one of them in particular was like, I'm sure that wouldn't have lasted long, you know. But it is that kind of thing that, you know, the names have been quite important, even though we were quite casual about it.
No, it definitely is. And sometimes it's just perfect. Sometimes when you know that, even as a member of the band trying to come up with a name, when you hear the right one, even when we try to name this podcast.
Yeah.
Do you remember? He had the idea for the podcast, came up with a concept of different guests in a different year and blah, blah, blah. But the original title, I think you called it like For the Year That's In It, which kind of made sense because that's what it's about. But we were sitting in the room and we kind of decided it's a wee bit wordy and a bit too lengthy, and we're trying to hang, and we were sitting in his house, the old room we used to do it in, and we're all kind of looking at each other going, what are we going to call it? And we're looking at podcast names online, and then Fenton, somebody said something about, do you mind the time we went to and then Fenton just goes, hold on, mind the time? And we were just all, yes, that's the one. That's it. So it just comes out organically, and that's it.
Short,
you know?
It was one of you two.
Yeah.
Said it, like.
Oh no, it was Fenton that said it. It was his idea anyway.
Well, I'm not sure there's going to be.
Is there a bit of paper with that?
No, there's not. No,
there can be.
Actually,
you can be the witness.
It was me.
Your legal team's in.
We'll not fight about it in front of the company anyway. We'll wait till you leave.
Did you see there's a group called the Overtones?
Yes.
Rascals.
Aye.
Overtones.
There's a group called the Undertones as well.
Really?
Not us. It's
Wow.
a college choir in a university in America.
Right.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, there was, and somebody told me years ago. Billy says that there was a what do you call them? Tribute band to us in Australia. And what did they call themselves? The Down Undertones.
Oh, very good.
Amazing.
Very good.
Whether it actually happened, I don't know, but
Amazing.
I don't care.
It's too cool not to believe. No,
It's just great.
no, that's I love that. The Down Undertones. Very good.
That's such a class name.
It is.
So, 1979, then the year that we're doing. So you were saying the start of that year was recording album.
Yeah.
So you'd been in the studio then in 1978.
No. We started in January 1979. 4 weeks, and it was in Eden Studios in Acton, West London. I've since learned that it was actually Chiswick, but apparently it's one of those places, you know,
in between.
Very in between. And we were there because we had enlisted the help of a producer called Roger Bashirian, who worked with Nick Lowe. He was kind of Nick Lowe's engineer. And also Roger had built this studio. He was one of the guys that owned it, and he'd done all the work on it. So because we got him, we went to Eden Studios, and it was great. First time we were in a proper studio like that, and not even just for one day. Monday to Friday for 4 weeks.
Where'd you stay?
We stayed in a flat in Westbourne Grove. What was it called? Small Brook Mews, roundabout of sort of Hyde Park, roundabout there. It's quite nice, posh. And it kind of. I always thought it was just like the Beatles, it's like Help.
Oh, aye.
It was great. We'd picked up at about 12 in a car. Aye, sometimes two. Well, usually 2 cars because there was 5 of us. And we were taken to the studio, and we went in, and everything was ready for you. There was the amps were, I think, we had hired amps, really good amps, and we had our guitars there, and somebody set them up, and it was a very there was carpet on the walls, and the doors were really heavy doors, like not quite an airlock, but near enough, and you could, if you wanted a cup of tea, you could either make it yourself, or you could say, we have a cup of tea.
All these things you would have been used to.
Yeah. And see, at about 2:00, the guy who worked in the studio came around and said, "What kind of sandwich would you like?" We were like, "What? What do you mean?"
Yeah. Can we live here now?
I'm going out for sandwiches. So this was like a new concept to us.
Oh, aye, of course.
Sandwich. You never had sandwiches in Derry unless it was in your own house. So this is all new to us, and it was one of those things as well. Like a week or so later, when we talked about do some keyboard overdubs, the Roger Bashirian, the producer, Roger would say, "Well, what can we get a Farfisa organ? You would hire in a Farfisa or a Vox Continental."
Wow.
And he would put it up in the studio, and you would go on, and between Damien and myself, you just work out something. You would sit there and go, "Here comes the summer." So it's like, there was never any, how much is this going to cost us? It didn't cost us that much.
Incredible.
As it turns out, but it was that kind of, yes, this is all for you.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
You don't have to carry in the gear.
No.
What do you want to do, or what do you need that will make this record better?
Man, that must have been some feeling.
It was absolutely.
And did we do know with your mates too?
Exactly.
Yeah, oh, that's true. Yeah.
Like having that experience with your mates.
Fellas you went to school with, grew
up with,
and I know, and still doing it with the same jokes as well. But no, so that kind of sums up that period, and then so we did that 4 weeks, and then it meant as well. You see that in London. Because we were in London, we didn't go home on a Friday or Saturday. We just stayed in London.
So you used the weekend yourself?
In London.
Weekend. But looking back on it now, I would see sometimes on Twitter or whatever, people would post up old pages from the music magazines at the time, which showed you the gigs in London, say in January 1979.
Yeah.
And I look at it now and I think, God, could have gone to see Ray Charles. You could have seen Public Image. You could have seen this or that. We never ever went to see a band.
No.
Never went to Pictures.
All right.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah. We went to Pictures, or we sat in the house and played records,
Oh, that's class, man. That's
brilliant.
class, yeah.
And also, then a couple of weeks after that, once we had it done, we went back to Derry, obviously, because that's where we were living. And then one day we had to go down to Bull Park because we were getting the photograph taken for the LP cover. John had organised it. He got Laurie Doherty, the famous Derry Journal photographer. He got Laurie, and I immediately, as soon as John said that, I said, "That's right, John, because you used to work in the Journal." For he worked in the Journal office in the compositors when he was about 16 or 17 for about 2 months, possibly, But I always assumed that John got Laurie because he met him once a couple of years earlier.
And what was that?
That's great.
See anything to the Lorcan Doherty, the
father?
Is that I was thinking that?
Yes, father of Lorcan.
There you go.
Yeah, and it was Larry was great because Larry would, like any newspaper photographer at the time, he did everything.
Yeah,
he did Bloody Sunday, he did shootings, he did this, he did that, he did the presentation of checks. you know, for charities. He did dinner dances. He did
anything from up here to
so he wasn't like it wasn't like we were getting a rock and roll photographer, you know.
Yeah.
Or he just came on and says, "Hey, what he's wanted and what he's doing," and we sat up here and he just. You know, he took us doing everything, and he wasn't trying to say, "Well, you know," he would a bit of composition. He would say, "No, move on," and all this, but he wouldn't sort of tell you how to look or how to react. He just trusted you. He just took a photographs, and the best photographs we've ever had taken.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yep, absolutely brilliant.
What was the graffiti in the background? And what was
there's a couple of photographs with graffiti in the background. The one which is in the back of the first single, the back of Teenage Kicks, is great. That was a door in the Bull Park, a big steel door in the Bull Park, and someone had painted the undertones are shite, pish, counts, wankers.
Yeah.
And
that was the counts that stood out.
And that photograph was taken. A photograph that was taken by my brother-in-law, Paddy Sims, who took the photographs. He took our very, very early photographs whenever we were looking for photographs to be taken in 77 and 78. But whenever it came to doing the art or turning the sleeve for Teenage Kicks, he had this photograph and he says, "That has to go in the back."
That's brilliant.
It's the best. It was our first review.
Yeah. You just turned it in its head and we'll use that as our album cover.
That's great.
It's very punk rock.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, because it's that thing, if anybody sees anybody doing a wee bit well for themselves, you go, do you know what, we'll take them down a wee peg or two here.
The thing I found odd about it is that we weren't that well known. But somebody around the Bull Park knew of us.
And had a spray can.
Already hated you.
It was probably one of the neighbours of the house you were practicing in. Turn that down, you cunts.
Yeah, all you needed is the word loud.
That's it.
Yeah, you're a bunch of loud counts.
Yeah, loud counts. That's what you said.
See back then, Mickey, was there a bit of like hostility towards people that like music, or was indie bands and wearing like leather jackets and stuff, or what was the crowd?
Because punk was new.
Yeah,
punk was kind of by the time, Newdy Derry possibly. By the time we had made a record, punk was old hat, really. So I don't think it was that anti-punk thing. It was just anti.
Just conflict.
Just
for the
boys
sake.
that, you know, as you say, taking them down a peg, you know. But you see, whenever we went over to do Top of the Pops, which is a line I always like to say, whenever we were first, Top of the Pop, whenever we went over to do that, we that was at the end of October, and we came back because we had a couple of shows in Derry. One was in the Rocking Chair, which was the night after the Teenage Kicks was on Top of the Pops, so that was great. And then a couple of days later, we were supposed to do one for John Clifford from TriStar.
Oh, yeah.
Because John, I think, we knew August, people used to call him. You know. We knew John and Damien O'Neill had played for his teams. So he asked, whenever we were on Top of the Pops, he says, or whenever the record came out, he says, "Would you do a show Halloween night in Bull Park, back of Lorry?" We said, "Of course, yeah." So I remember we went down to it, and it was great. It was going well. It was about 2 songs in, and eggs. We started. Eggs came out, and because it was dark. I couldn't see
where they're coming from.
Couldn't see the wee shites that were throwing them, and so we were like splattered by eggs. You know, and you kind of one or two, you duck and all that. Then one hit my guitar, and for months afterwards, I could still see the shells in the grooves around the pickup. So that kind of we had to abandon it.
No way.
So yeah, there was opposition to it. You know, but I think that was kind of a bit of crack. You know. But Fergal especially got a lot of stick from people. He used to go with a girl down in Chantallo, and he used to get. And I went with the girl around the corner in Chantallo too. So he used to get the Chantallo bus, you know, and you would go on, and the big boys in the back of the bus would spot him. They wouldn't spot me so much because nobody spots bass players, but they spot singer. And he would get terrible abuse, you know. And then, of course, he had to walk from the bus stop round to the house. Boys would be walking behind him, you know, shouting. And all that. Never really that violent, you know.
No, but it's just...
but it's just kind of...
That's still good. It's almost that thing of how, like, look at the shapey being passionate about something. How dare you care about something? Do you know what I mean?
Wise up.
Exactly.
I'm
singing. Wise up.
Get your hair cut.
If Bob Dylan or Paul McCartney had walked down the street, they'd have been called cunts as well.
You know what? It's kind of not in any way comparison, but you know, there's a feeling in Liverpool that the Beatles got out of Liverpool very quick. They all moved to London. You can kind of imagine why.
It's always the way, isn't it?
You know,
exactly.
You know, like we were not nowhere near that scale in terms of you know, public notice, but it's kind of it would get to you after a while. You know?
100%.
Yeah.
As far as Derry goes, these are pretty much the Beatles, to be fair.
Well, yeah.
You know.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Well, the other thing as well, boys used to shout out vans at you, and they would always shout out Jimmy, Jimmy. Jimmy, Jimmy! And you know, you wave, you know, he has no mobiles, but you know.
I'd say the first time you giggled, and then the 75th time it was like,
you're kind of going,
okay.
We know what the song's called. We run it.
I know, well, I think I very quickly learned that you never ever get annoyed.
Not at all.
Because
it's all a claim. Whether or not it's positive or negative coming from them.
If you get annoyed, it makes it even worse.
Exactly.
That's it.
You're giving them what they want.
Yeah.
You must still get
all
a bit.
jealousy.
You must still get a wee bit.
I sometimes you do, but because I'm now in my 60s, nobody really nobody threatens to hit me anymore, and there's no there's no real slagging about it now. It's because it's people who kind of would be younger than me and would kind of notice it and go, "Oh, Undertones, very good," you know, that kind of way. So I obviously I still appreciate that. You know?
Of course.
And people ask you to do podcasts.
Exactly. There you go.
Not that regular, but you know, I have been asked.
Hey, you can come on every week.
Sorry, who are you again?
The length of my answers, I might need to.
That's great.
Not at all. You're here to talk. We're here to listen. You know.
I know.
Yeah, and then the Casbah gigs. They're like people you talk to in Derry that would have been out and about at that time. Everybody was at the Casbah at Undertones. Like you must have 4 million people.
Thousands of people at it.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't know where the Casbah was. Because, you know where it was.
Down around the gas yard.
No,
that's my knowledge.
No,
is that right?
You know the entrance to Foyleside, the top entrance to Foyleside?
I do. Yes, McDonald's and all that, and
basically the wee sort of the yard outside the front door. The Casbah fitted into that.
God, I was way off. There you go.
It was on the corner, and it was sort of the short. It was an. Fergal said it was a porta cabin, which was plastered over, and I think he's right. You know, I didn't realise at the time until he said this in interviews. And the shorter sides would have been one would have been at the top. You know, down Bridge Street, but the length of the ways was down Orchard Street. So that's what the Casbah was, and it was great because it had a couple of things that seemed to be non-aligned religiously.
Yeah.
And I think it was that because it was basically a hippie bar, or nobody said alternative in those days, but alternative kind of, you know. So it would have been rock bands would have played on it, and I think, according to what we were told at the time, prostitutes would have been in there.
Okay.
Not that many. And I think it might have been a very early bar that was welcoming of gay people. But again, it was very, you know, it wasn't like, it wasn't Stonewall or anything, you know.
And advertised like that, it was just...
It's just they could have gone in, you know.
Felt comfortable there.
That.
Good.
And I think possibly there may have been dope smoked, but I genuinely never came across it, you know. But people say,
I'm sure there would have been.
So, but the main thing for us was that they were very open to bands, because we had asked pubs before, and we were kind of, we were turned down because we didn't know, we didn't want to play top 40. So, and also because some pubs had a weird thing that your equipment's not great.
All right.
Talking about amplifiers. And I was like, you know, nowadays, what's that? What difference does that make? Anyway, so the Casbah were welcoming, you know. Billy and John, I think it was, or Billy Damien possibly, went up and asked, could we play? And says, yeah. And we got into the circuit. We were every couple of weeks. And then, again, it was because it was regular and there was no expectations of you. You just improved.
Amazing.
You know,
the pressure was off. It was just
you were just playing, and you played for an hour and a half.
So we use on there weekly.
Towards the end, it was nearly weekly. Yeah.
Wow. And then I suppose for the build up the album, then you had all that down.
We had all those songs.
Amazing.
We had all those songs. Because I don't know what happened, but the last show we did there, I think would have been the one that the guy from Sire Records came over. So Teenage Kicks had been out, the single had been out on Good Vibrations, and it had got some attention in London. And Sire Records sent a guy over to see us. And years later, someone says he came to see if you have any more songs.
Right.
And at this stage, we were doing mostly our own songs.
Right.
I still doing cover versions, of course, but we had a good 15 songs. So
that's
but then I never found out. We stopped playing in the Casbah, maybe because we were doing shows in England. But the Casbah kind of came at a neat end for us, our relationship with them. And also in the back of my mind, I think we may have got left under bad terms because once the record came out, we might have done interviews and one of us, not me, one of us kind of started talking about that, the old hippies and the Casbah, and they never liked us and all this. And it was like, other thing, the boys read the NME and go, oh, really?
Is that right?
So I've never, this is a real confessional, I've never sort of discussed it with anybody, really. What happened? Why did, But I think there was a wee bit of that with the Casbah,
Okay.
Yeah, pity.
Yeah. And then of course, making it big in London and the John Peel thing. So that was that 1979?
First single came out October 78, start of October 78 on Sire. They signed us then. Came out in Belfast, September 78. I'm vague with the dates, but September 78. So by Christmas 78, we had done a tour with a band called the Rosillos. Because we'd signed the deal with Sire Records, and one of the first things they did was, right, the Rosillos, also on Sire Records, they are doing a major UK tour, and you're going to be the support band. As it happened, they broke up after 7 shows. Nothing to do with us. They broke up after 7 shows.
Just coincidence.
Well, it was actually good for us because, if the list of dates took us to like Christmas Eve, and we found it hard being away from home. And you were doing like 6 shows a week,
That's intense, man.
That could have been, we could have been either road hardened rockers, or we could have just gone home crying.
Yeah.
So we did about 7 or 8, and then we did another. Well, the good thing about the Rosillos was that also on the bill was Joy Division.
Wow.
Very early Joy Division.
Yeah. Yep.
79, they just changed their name from Warsaw. So they were there, they were on first. Then it was us, and then it was the Rosillos. So we did some really great shows,
Incredible.
Brilliant. In the Lyceum in London and all that. And then we did some Irish shows coming up to Christmas 78. And then we went home for Christmas, which is great.
How did it feel coming home for Christmas? Like you were on top of the world.
We also did a homecoming show in the Rialto.
Brilliant.
It was brilliant. It was great.
Man. I can imagine the buzz would have been about the town.
And well, even my eldest brother, Tony was there. And Tony had never seen us. Tony never wouldn't have gone to see us. Like, he's very supportive and all that. But I remember standing up at the back of the Rialto. I think the Moondogs were supporting us. And I was said to Tony, and Tony says, this is good, hear us. And I was kind of really, our Tony's here on the show.
This is all proud.
It's that big a deal. Our Tony's there. No, that was really good, and again, Patrick Sims with the camera, he took some photographs, and he also took footage of it. Don Mullen, he was involved in the Bloody Sunday campaign. One of the early, he wrote a book about it.
Right.
And Don is Don's done all kinds of work. Former, I think it was going to be a priest or something, but Don's been a campaigner for all kinds of things. And for some reason, I think it might have been at McGee or something, but he got a video camera, a wee black and white video camera, and Don filmed us.
So there's footage out there of it, is there?
There is. I'm nearly sure there is. Because this, maybe I'm misremembering it, but I remember Don being up in our house, and he had the video camera, and he plugged it into the TV. Of course, we had a black and white TV. So maybe it wasn't culture. But no, I think so. He showed that too. So it was that kind of it was a great thing, for us to be playing in the Rialto. Which was also it was a cinema at the same time. I saw the Kurt Russell Elvis Presley film in the Rialto.
Ah, class.
So it was that was great. Yeah. That was 78. Paddy, I could do a year in 78.
You could indeed, yeah. You do
But 79 was 79, so it started off, yeah, it was great. Really good.
Yeah. And then, when was the album released in 79?
I think about April or May 79. So we did a couple of tours of England on our own, and that was great too. You know, in the back of we had a minibus at this stage, and there was a van to take the gear. So we were in the minibus, and we had a proper tour manager as well, an Englishman called Martin Cole, who was great. Martin Cole was lovely. Taught me several things. He taught me that if you're in a restaurant and when you're finished, you put your knife and fork side by side on the plate. But if you're not finished, you put it where it kind of was. You know, you kept them separate.
Yeah.
I always remember that.
That's the only thing in my head to this day. When you put your knife and fork together in the middle of the plate, it means you're done.
Yeah.
Take it away.
You see, and also, Brendan, whenever I do that, I think of Martin Cole.
Amazing.
You know,
Yeah.
Martin Cole. And it was also that time as well. You see, he used to do shows, and if it was near London, the record company would take you out. And that's whenever, like, we used to be taken out to restaurants. And at this stage, I was still unsure of when you paid at a restaurant.
Yeah.
Do you go up to the counter and, you know, order it and pay there? Do you pay whenever they send it and all this? Because we didn't. We weren't paying. But also, we weren't paying.
Yeah.
So we never learned that. I remember, I swear, I discovered Parmesan, and I couldn't get over Parmesan cheese. It's like a baby's vomit. How are you picking that? What are you doing? That's disgusting. All that stuff, you know. And there was bottles of wine. There used to be wine arrived, and there was a thing as well, which I thought people did. Excuse me. And they used to take the labels off the wine because that wine was so good. I'm going to take that label because then I'm going to buy a bottle of.
You remember?
You're really going to Superfair and buy a. Excuse me, would you have a bottle of wine with that label? So, you know, there was always this kind of culture that I kind of thought was what people did. It wasn't. It was just what these guys from.
You're probably going to go and buy a really cheap bottle of wine and put that label around it.
Or stick it on a bottle of Ribena.
Exactly.
There you go. So we did tours. We did 2 tours around about the spring of that time. The second one was because the LP was coming out. At that stage as well, Jimmy had come out. Jimmy. And we got on Top of the Pops.
I love that song too.
We got Top of the Pops. It's great.
Brilliant.
Top of the Pops, that. And then we just did sort of shows. We did a great festival in July 79 supporting Status Quo.
Amazing.
And Status Quo and Judas Priest.
Wow, man.
Rockpile were on, Mick Lowe and Dave Edmonds. And I think, can't remember who else. But anyway, I was Daily Mount and we were at that, and it was great too.
Class.
It's just, you know,
quite an eclectic
just had a wonderful time. You know, you were doing this and you were doing that. And then as Damon and I, like we would still hang out in Derry. But if we weren't doing anything, we took great delight, and I used to call in the Hills House, Beechwood Avenue, and we would go down the town, and he would say, "We don't have to work. We're not working." I said, "And we don't have to go to the tech anymore.
Yeah,
we can just do, and we're getting £30 a week.
What a feeling!
And it was just brilliant. And you would go up to Ken's Records, you'd look at records, and you'd buy a record, and you'd come home and listen to it. So it was that kind of that. As a friend of mine who's a musician, he still says, it's a day off school. Yeah. If you're in a band, it's a day off school. And that feeling was really at its peak during 79, you know. You see, just sit in O'Neill's house and watch TV and try and write songs and, you know, make tea and toast. And then I go up to our house and it was just...
It's a life.
It was fantastic, you know.
Yeah.
I say, you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
That's it. Well, what do you think you would have worked at if it hadn't been for the band? Did you have any ideas what you wanted to do?
No, I didn't. I did the usual sort of applying for jobs. In 1976, I applied for a job at the post office as a telephone technician, because the post office then, it was the GPO, they did phones. And I went and I didn't get it, but I had to go to the Coleraine to do a practical test about wiring and soldering and all this. Then my brother got me a job in Ballantyne's Builders Yards down Bay Road. I got a job in there, but lucky by that stage, by the time I started it, I'd already signed the record contract, so I knew I have 3 weeks in this.
Yeah.
So that was great. But it was funny because I used to work in the office, working out VAT on bills. I know.
Lovely.
It was 15% then. And I used to do that. And they had a radio on in the background, and I didn't say to anybody. It was 2 women in the office as well. And boys used to come in as well the odd time. But I didn't say I was in the band. I didn't say I was going anywhere. But it was also the week that Teenage Kicks was Peter Powell's record of the week on Lunchtime Radio 1. So, and I knew this. Obviously, I knew. I was told about this. So, like, I used to kind of. There was no one else in the office. I would lean over to the radio and put it to Radio 1 and listen to it and hear. And once you heard it, then you turn it off immediately. So
must be so surreal.
Oh, it was brilliant though.
Yeah,
I would say. Good, you know. But that was like 78. So the summer of 79, it was just brilliant. Just brilliant. You know, we had another hit as well with another Top of the Pops appearance with "Here Comes the Summer," which was great. You know, really enjoyed that. I had to go on and pretend to play the keyboard. You know.
That's what I was going to ask. What was the crack with the miming? The miming on the Top of the Pops.
That was a thing, wasn't it?
Everybody did it. Yeah. And you did it, and it became, I can't remember who the first band was, but it became the thing that you would just carry on. You know, you wouldn't, like, I think first time for Teenage Kicks, we did do it as if we were playing it live, you know. I think because I learned as well that you have to hit the guitar a wee bit just to get into it, kind of. You know,
of course.
You have to do that, otherwise you'll be standing there. Going, look, we're miming. But then after that, you've got a crack with it, you know, and then the keyboards. Because I remember seeing Jerry Lee Lewis on Blue Peter, the children's TV show. Jerry Lee Lewis was on Blue Peter playing the piano. But I remember seeing him, he was playing it with his elbows. He was playing it with the elbows. And whenever I was on Top of the Pops with the keyboard, I'm going to do Jerry Lee Lewis. Do all that, you know. It just, and it's funny because sometimes I see old clips of it, and you can see us where we're looking up at the monitors, you know, the TV screen up there, to see if you can see yourself on TV. How corny.
We'd all do it. That's the thing.
I actually seen a clip recently of Oasis on Top of the Pops, and Liam and Noel swap positions. So Liam's standing playing guitar like this, and Noel's singing, and it's Liam's vocals. Roll with it.
Very good.
And I was like, and I think Kurt Cobain, he was on one of them shows, and he just didn't do anything.
Right.
And
a
he
lot
sang.
Of people used to do wee protests
I
against
think it was Smells Like Teen Spirit, but he sang it like monotone.
Really?
Because
was his vocal
this is
live?
when the vocals ended up being live, didn't they?
Yeah.
And he just sang in monotone with the lights down.
I actually saw
dangerous.
a similar clip. It was, I don't think it was Top of the Pops, but it was one of these shows, maybe like American talk show. It was Mamas and Papas.
Yeah.
And they were the same. They were told they had to mime. And the girl, I can't remember her name now, not Mama Cass, the other lady. Can't remember her name.
It's John Phillips' wife.
It was on the tip of my tongue as I was starting to say that. Now I can't remember.
Stop thinking about it.
It'll come back. Anyway, she decided she was like singing away, and then she whips out this banana, and while her singing first went on, she started eating this banana.
Very
just to kind of, again, they show like
protest.
The first one I remember from the punk thing was when the Stranglers were on. And like this is really niche, you know, but if you'd known the Stranglers, you would know Jean-Jacques Brunel played the bass and Hugh Cornwell played guitar. But on Top of the Pops, they swapped instruments.
Over as well,
and like that's nothing really, but at the time it was like that was a big deal.
Like, what are they doing?
For fans, you know, like you were going, oh, that's great.
Proper punk.
How brilliant is that? You know? I know it's just the place of Top of the Pops in our childhood, you know.
And then the whole, like being a punk band from Derry, and especially what was going on in Derry with the Troubles, what was going on in the whole country, and even travelling around, like that was only a couple of years after the whole Miami show bands.
Oh yeah.
Like I was 76 was Miami show band. So was there a feeling of that where you was just young and just enjoying being part of a band? Didn't think about it.
Never occurred to us.
Yeah.
I remember that Miami, and I remember talking to Billy about it when it happened. You know that summer. No, never. I never ever felt in any way would have been targeted or anything. You know.
And then that stopped a lot of bands actually coming to Northern Ireland then, didn't it?
Which in a strange way kind of suited us whenever we were starting.
So because you said the whole.
Well, no, it's not that. It's that you didn't. we didn't see any other punk bands really. Occasionally I went to see Eddie and the Hot Rods and so on. They were brilliant. But we didn't see any bands regularly. So we were kind of inspired by records. So we based what we were doing on records. And records is what the band does best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't see any dodgy live punk bands and kind of think you can get away with it. You know, I certainly always imagined that the bands that you read about in the NME would be brilliant, you know, because the enemy were saying they're so great and all this. And then if you ever saw them live, they would be just fantastic. Turns out that they weren't.
Yeah.
But because we had this kind of standard in our head, you had to be really brilliant.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah,
So that's
really
why, because we were kind of protected, I always say it was like one of these, you know, tribe in the Amazonian jungle, you know, unaffected by the 21st century or 20th century. So it kind of suited us that we were playing in the Casbah all that time in 77 and 78, reading about bands, hearing records, but never seeing live bands. And it was actually good for us. Well, funny enough, in August 79, we had decided to put on a show in Derry, an outdoor free festival, very hippie, very David Bowie, free festival in Templemore Sports Complex. And we had got the Clash to headline it.
Oh, man.
Wow. And the Clash, we got the Clash to headline it. And the Damned were going to play because they had reformed.
Okay.
And we were going to play. And maybe the Moondogs, I don't know. So it was set for, I can't remember the exact day in August. And we actually did some shows. We did 4 shows in the Marquee in London, which we would have been slightly too big for the Marquee, but they were doing the Marquee because we were raising money to pay for this festival.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do we call it? The Derry dance or something like that. And so it was all set, and then about a week before we were in Eden Studios, we were making a single. I think it was Here You've Got My Number, and Joe Strummer comes down.
Wow.
And Joe Strummer comes down, and he's along with somebody, his manager or something, and it's he got a death threat.
Oh, man.
He got a death threat from the Red Hand Commandos. He got a letter. I'm nearly sure it was in green ink, but maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. There was a letter sent to him because, you see, the 79, in May 79, that was the year of the election, electing the Thatcher one. And the NME did a thing where who should be Prime Minister in terms of from music. So they had all these people, they had musical figures, and they sort of says, what would your manifesto be? And Joe Strummer was on him, and Joe Strummer's manifesto was this and that and the other, and withdrawal British troops from Northern Ireland.
That would go down well, all right.
And that, unnoticed by them, but a couple of months later it came up, and it says, if you set foot in Northern Ireland, you will be assassinated.
Wow.
And I know, but
how did you take it as being Derry boys? Was it like
kind of went?
Sure, it's grand.
No, it's we didn't actually say it, but we wanted to say it's in Templemore. It's in
you're grand.
You'll be grand.
They're never going to come in.
You'll
there.
be grand.
The border's just behind us.
They're never going to come in there. But obviously he couldn't do that, and I think he was advised by Special Branch not to do it.
Oh, you can understand. Jesus,
I know, but we had to make up a story then that it was cancelled for insurance purposes.
Oh, you didn't want to let them one kind of,
Well, no, we were just, I don't know why, or we were advised by our manager at the time, an Englishman. He was brilliant, a genius manager, and he says, no, just come up with something else, and we did that. But the good thing was we were able to keep all the money that we raised at the Marquee.
Silver lining.
Silver lining.
Yeah. And that's mad. I mean, a week before as well, all the planning that's went into it,
I
all
know,
the
and
organising.
I remember the discussions. Oh, can we do it with this? Can we do it with the other? And he says, nah, you can't. Couldn't replace the Clash because a month later we were due to support them in America. So, which we did. Because nobody in America threatened us, so we were.
They wouldn't dare.
They wouldn't dare.
Man, that must have been incredible with the Clash.
Even then, I thought it was great. You know the way sometimes you think you only realise things are great years afterwards. Even then, it was great. Yes, it was first time in America, which is great. You know, and the usual cliches apply. You know, it is like the pictures.
Yeah.
You know, and the first show was in Minneapolis, Minneapolis, and we were staying in a Holiday Inn in St. Paul. And that's when I was like Strabane and Lifford.
Yeah.
St. Paul, Minneapolis. So,
Idea's never been compared to that before.
yeah, and people at Minneapolis always say, yeah, well, we're Strabane. St. Paul's, Lifford. But it was great because the first morning, Damien and I, like, we shared the room, you know, Dee and I, we got up and, you know, French toast. And whenever you go to America, you get up early, I think, because of the time difference, you know, no, that's where you get up. So we were up 7 o'clock, French toast and bacon. And it across the several car parks, because it was, you know, it was that classic American thing. Everything's big, and it wasn't like the Everglades. There was a car park, and then there was another car park, and at the end of the other car park was a Sears store.
Okay.
Supermarket.
Sears, remember Sears?
Well, Sears catalog. We always I always read about Sears catalog. So Sears. So we went over there, and it was like, you know, Wayne's in Aladdin's cave. They had everything.
They sell everything. Yep.
Of course, we saw the wall with all the rifles on it.
Of course.
You can go into a shop and buy rifles. And like they were
and not decommissioned.
Not decommissioned, and not shotguns, and not spud guns. They were like, gee, proper rifles. And we bought I went in and I bought about 9 or 10 baseball bats as souvenirs to take home. That's when I, you know, I was unaware of the rule that you buy your souvenirs at the end of the holiday. I thought I couldn't get over myself. So I went, whoa, I buy my brothers, and I'll get them all a baseball. Classic.
Such a luxurious item.
Well, you never had baseball bats in there, you know. Nowadays, obviously, you see them everywhere, but this is like a genuine baseball bats, you know, Louisville Slugger and all this. And so I basically spent all my money on the first day. And also it meant that I had to carry around.
You had to lug 9 baseball bats around America?
All around for the next 3 weeks.
So, did you even get home with them?
I got home, yeah. No problem, no problem at all. It wasn't offensive. They were like, "What's these?" Yeah. And I still have one that I kept myself.
Oh, class, man.
Of course, Damien O'Neill, the git, will do me because he bought one and he got the Clash to sign his.
Oh, no way.
And he still has that too.
Oh, wow.
I know, well, he thinks he has.
What's his address?
I threw it in the fire.
Do you know what? Served him right.
Yeah.
Well joking. So it's around this time we move on to movies and music.
Hey.
Okay.
How does that sound? So Brandy looks after the music music segment.
Hit me, Brenton.
I have a list of albums here that would choke a horse. I'll read them off. The first one I've written down, obviously, is the Undertones' debut album.
What a great record.
What a great record.
I've actually been, as I said, Sean and Fat in there, I've always been an Undertones fan. Genuinely, not just saying that. But I've been listening to a lot more of these last coming weeks just because of the Cinnamon Call. Amazing, absolutely amazing albums. Especially the first one, probably my favourite. Yeah. Amazing. Just I can hear a lot of the bands I grew up listening to. Kind of, I was born in 1990, so I grew up listening to a lot of kind of pop punk stuff, Blink 182 and Green Day and stuff like that. But even indie bands that are out now, when I listen to that first Undertones album, you can hear with the guitar riffs and the bass and the drums and the wee hooks, you can just hear. And
they're all tiny wee songs too.
But
that's what I like about them.
They're simple, but they're brilliant. And they stay in your head all day in a good way, not in an annoying way. But I mean, no, honestly, absolutely amazing album. My favourite Undertones song, just while we're on the subject, hasn't done that album. It's Gonna Happen.
Oh, really?
I love that track. It's just a fantastic song. I don't know what it is. I find it well joyous, and I love the way it fades in and out, and the saxophones and all, and it's just...
You see, now that I do a show on the radio, I hate the fact that it fades in.
I know, but you want songs to have
a... really annoying.
You want songs to have a definite
Why
end,
I know. That, you know?
But I think for that track, I don't know, the way it goes...
it's like, I know what you mean. It's almost as if you happen upon it, and the band's already started.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, never thought of it.
There you go. So many levels.
And you know, just on that as well, if we had been covering 1979 and it wasn't yourself as the guest, I'm sure that would have been the first album you would have popped out
said
with.
that whole soliloquy as well.
Yeah.
You know,
thank you.
Probably more. It's not to embarrass you, but anyway. So I'll just round these off because there's so many of them. We can't go into
do you want me to
detail
stop
about all of
whenever I
them.
have one, or have an opinion?
You can shout over the top, mate. Just make it if you want. You'll probably do that right away. London Calling by the Clash.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I bought it up in Ken's. And it was great because whenever we were playing with the Clash, all the great songs, we hadn't heard because the record wasn't out whenever we did the tour. So we were kind of going, I remember Clampdown. We did a song called Clampdown.
Oh, I know it.
Because you would see the set list as well. London Calling itself. Coca-Cola. I'm sure they played Coca-Cola. Oh, what a great record.
Oh, man,
fantastic.
Is that the one with the cover? Is it Joe Strummer himself like smashing the guitar?
Paul
is that who smashing the guitar off?
And that was in
brilliant cover as well.
That was in the Palladium in New York.
Right. Okay.
And we were supporting them that day.
Really?
Yeah, we were supporting them.
From that album cover, right? Okay.
But we did 2 shows with them in the Palladium, and I think I might have been the second show, I'm not sure. But I wasn't there because I think it says, right, I've seen The Clash. I'm way out. As soon as we were finished, I was out. Looking at Manhattan, you know. So yeah, that was a brilliant record. Still a brilliant record.
Amazing. It is the first Clash album I ever heard too, but obviously heard a lot more since. Off the Wall by Michael Jackson again. Breakfast in America, Supertramp. The Wall by Pink Floyd.
No.
Unknown Pleasures, Joy Division.
Okay.
And Through the Outdoor, Led Zeppelin, which is not one I was more familiar with earlier. Zeppelin.
My 18-year-old punk is shouting. I can't stop him.
Shout away. You had AC/DC with Highway to Hell.
No.
Entertainment, Gang of Four. Talking Heads with Fear of Music.
Yes.
Rust Never Sleeps by Neil Young, an great album. One of my favourite Neil Young songs is the first track on that, My, Hey, Hey.
Oh, what a tune.
Hey, Hey,
My. It's better to
burn out
Fade Away. Yeah. Incredible song.
Rust Never Sleeps.
Rust Never Sleeps, that's it. Regatta de Blanc by The Police. Bad Girls by Donna Summer. You had Eat to the Beat by Blondie. Tusk, Fleetwood Mac. You had Black Rose.
Eat to the Beats.
79 as well, yeah.
Because at the start of 79, I bought Parallel Lines. Obviously, that came out in 78.
Must have been out before, because Heart of Glass, I think, was a big song in 79 as well.
I was a slow learner, I was.
There you go. You had Thin Lizzy, a Black Rose. You had Lodger with David Bowie. The Three Imaginary Boys with The Cure. Discovery, ELO. The Pleasure Principle, Gary Newman. Damn the Torpedoes, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Wow.
Page 2, The Long Run by the Eagles. Van Halen 2, Armed Forces by Elvis Costello. I believe you mentioned that earlier.
I bought that.
One of the earlier records you would have bought.
It was. I used at that stage. That was only his third LP, but at that stage I would have bought every Elvis Costello. But I remember as well. They say towards the end of 78, we were in the studio. We made Get Over You, a single. In Eden Records.
Well. Love it.
And Roger Bashirian produced it. That was the first thing he produced for us. And I remember after we'd all that done, he says, do you want to hear an Elvis Costello song? I went, oh yeah. Because he was working on he engineered it.
Like a current, like a recent sort of one?
He said, do you want to hear? And he played Accidents Will Happen. And I remember thinking, God almighty, listen to that. That is fantastic. Ours is like a tiny. It's like a bit of chewing gum compared to this T-bone steak that is. Accidents Will Happen, piano, and it was just fantastic. So yeah, Armed Forces are brilliant. Brilliant.
I love Elvis Costello too.
Fantastic.
What else do we have? We had Voulez-Vous with ABBA. You had Setting Suns with The Jam.
Yes, I love The Jam.
Great album indeed. Spirits Haven't Flown by the Bee Gees. Dynasty by Kiss. Not really my style, but whatever. I Am, Earth, Wind and Fire. You had Metal Box, Public Image Limited. Band you mentioned earlier. We had Bob Dylan. I always joke, every year we've done, whether it be the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, Bob Dylan had an album out that year.
Always there.
Street Legal, no, it wasn't that.
It was Slow Train Coming.
Slow Train Coming, the Christian one.
There's far too many Bob Dylan albums to ever. I don't even think he remembers half of them. In the Heat of the Night by Pat Benatar, which is, I'm not familiar with the album, but I like a couple of Pat Benatar songs. XTC, Drums and Wires, good wee album too. Communique, Dire Straits. I had Sultans of Swing and all was out that year too. The Fine Art of Servicing by the Boomtown Rats. Overkill by Motorhead. A Different Kind of Tension by Buzzcocks. And
the much forgotten.
Exactly.
LP.
Buzzcocks.
Suddenly no one bought the Buzzcocks anymore.
No, I love Buzzcocks, an incredible band. And then the last one I had down was Cool in the Gang, Ladies' Night. And there's a lot more. That's the tip of the iceberg here.
Yeah, it was a very good year.
Incredible year. Unbelievable year. I'm happy enough for that.
So that's the music of the year, and
you could do a whole flipping year-long podcast talking about the albums of that year if you wanted to. But
including people who hate some of the records.
Yeah.
of course,
I was loving the reaction. 18-year-old punk coming out there.
Oh, 100%. That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
I made sure to take down not just ones that I liked, but all different kind of, do you know what I mean? You had
Of course.
represented.
Significant records of the year.
Of course, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And now the significant movies of the year,
Movies.
Sean.
Here we go.
There's not as many as that.
No, good.
I'm going to start from the bottom. Dragon Fist with Jackie Chan.
I never heard of Jackie Chan until the 80s.
No, I didn't. I was surprised to hear he was out that early.
Was that his father? Was that Jackie Chan? Jackie Chan Senior?
That's him, because he is.
Is he 12?
Wee Jackie and Big Jackie.
Jackie Oak.
Jackie Oak.
Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it, to be
No.
honest. I wanted to mention it because there were so many of those genre movies that year, and
Was
I
it-
just didn't know any, and I was like, I gotta just mention
Was it in
one.
Hong Kong? Was it made in Hong Kong?
Yeah, this was back when he was.
Before he...
See, I'm of an era that remember Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
I remember going to see Bruce Lee films whenever they first came out. You know, I remember hearing as well. Whenever it must have been what was it? Was it Enter the Dragon was the big hit, wasn't it? The first hit.
So, yeah.
I remember my brothers and brother-in-laws saying that after that. It showed in the city. There was boys in Derry who went up to the big army checkpoints and were like kung fu kicking the big fences. Seriously,
I well believe it.
you know what I mean? They were like,
We'll get you
I'm
out.
sure the soldiers didn't know what.
Probably passing themselves laughing on
my
there.
God. So yeah, so they're kung fu films. Yeah.
I swear to God.
Oh, it was huge in the 70s.
Yeah.
Mid 70s, like. I remember there was somebody told me. Sorry, I'm
No, you're right.
No,
Go
you're
ahead.
all
Go
right.
ahead.
Chat away.
Whenever I was about 12 or 13, there was a fella in our street who told me this amazing fact. He says, you know, there's a boy in my class and he knows the name of every Bruce Lee film. And this was, wow. That's what really was. You were,
No
really?
way.
I know. It's
I wonder if he'd like to
was
be a
that
guest.
big, you
I
know?
wonder if he could be a guest sometime.
Name them.
Yeah. Anyway, what's next? Must be more films than that. Just
No, that was it. No, this has been mine to tell. No, the Muppet movie, the first feature
Oh. Right.
Muppet movie.
right.
Life of Brian.
Yes.
Monty Python.
Yeah,
Talked about that pre-recorded.
Yeah, saw
What a
that in
film.
London. We went as a group to see that in London. I remember coming out of it, and Fergal was singing Brian. He sang the theme tune. He knew the theme tune immediately, you know. So it was a great film.
Great fun.
Aye.
Still stands
Still
up.
very good, you know. Blessed are the cheesemakers and all that. Just so fantastic.
So
And you know what's-
quotable too.
But you know what's great too about it? You see the way that they had to defend it, the way they were on with, I think, Malcolm Muggeridge or something on BBC TV shows. They really, I think nowadays they would just ignore it.
Aye.
But I think certainly John Cleese, don't know who else, one of them, was on debates in the BBC defending.
How can you do this and all this here? I think
Defend
John
it.
Cleese
And-
is still defending it. He
I
saw
know.
something recently.
And
you
like
know?
it's, you know, even the first time, you knew it was not about, you know,
Yeah.
they did that.
It's about a crack.
They did that conceit that it's not about Jesus, it's about
No.
The Life
About
of
Brian.
Brian.
boy, it's scary kind of when you even back then.
Because it was banned in Ireland then.
Was it?
It was. Well, you suppose that was that was the same year that a couple of million people come out to see the Pope. So
Well,
1979.
I don't think it
Pope
would have
came
taken
to
much to
Ireland.
get debanned in Ireland back then.
yeah, but maybe if because if they had a shown Life of Brian, no one would have turned up to see the Pope. Obviously.
Yeah,
So I can
he's
see.
not the Pope. He's
I
a very
can
naughty
see
boy.
they're thinking.
Yeah,
We also had Quadrophenia.
Quadrophenia. I saw that in the presence of a band, well, a fellow from a band called The Chords, because round about that time there was a mod revival in England, 79, and there was a band called The Chords who wore the parkas, who basically copied the Who, copied the Jam. But we all went to see Quadrophenia, and it was great.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Great film.
Sting. Can I
Sting's in
write?
it?
Can I
Yeah.
write you a check whenever he was getting fined for something? It was brilliant. Quadrophenia was great, and then there's a great scene in it whenever they're at a party and they start playing My Generation.
They
just
all go
mad.
buck mad.
And at the time, I was like, "Oh, this is so good."
I think they kind of they let themselves under a kind of wee a party of people. What would you call it? Wee kind of swats, and then they,
Right.
they're playing
Right.
this low kind of jazzy R&B,
And then
he
somebody
goes
puts
over and
on,
goes,
fantastic.
they bangs on, and then everyone stands up and they're just going brilliant.
And the main guy, Phil Daniels,
Daniels, yeah.
ended up doing that.
Blur, Park
yep,
Life.
the
That's
dialogue.
right, indeed.
Fantastic.
We had 1941 Spielberg.
But it flopped, didn't it? I think it was famously flopped.
Yeah, because
Was it-
this was after Jaws and stuff, so
Aye.
there was like a lot of, do you know what I mean, expectation.
Because it's not one that sticks out as a Spielberg
It would have
film.
been,
No,
it would have been after Close Encounters as well. I think Close Encounters was 78,
That's right.
And that was
and
Brilliant.
I thought that was his first big flop. I've never seen it. Have you ever seen it?
I haven't seen it either. But I thought it was.
I've never even heard of it. 1941.
I thought it was worth mentioning because
Is it something to do with Pearl Harbor? It was like a
it
comedy
was
take
like
on
set
Pearl Harbor.
just after in America. But you had like Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, and stuff. For quite
You know
a lot
what?
of
It's
that kind of
probably
crowd.
good.
Yeah,
Probably worth
Let's
watching.
watch it.
I do
give it a
want to
go
see
now,
it
yeah.
because the writing team behind it's Rob Zemeckis and Bob Gale, who like penned
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. Like, so
Really?
yeah,
I must.
So-
It's Sturavite.
I know that piqued my interest today. I was going, I need to get this done. So the first Star Trek feature film.
Okay.
Any Trekkies?
Not really.
No, not me either.
I remember that. I remember the original series. Like, you know,
We also had the Amityville Horror.
Ooh,
never
I actually
seen
have
it.
seen that. It's
That's
it was pretty terrifying.
Is it, eh?
So it was. We talked about this recently. I hate horror films. My life's hard enough for it walking around my house at 3 in the morning, being scared of my own shadow. You know, so.
And that was also James Brolin, who we spoke about.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
That's
James
right,
Brolin.
yeah.
And Margot Kidder from the Superman movies.
That's right. Yes.
We had Kramer versus Kramer.
That's a brilliant film.
Aye.
That's-
Dustin Hoffman and
I think I was
legal
one-
battle for their son or
One
something.
of Meryl Streep's, I think one of Meryl Streep's first films as well.
Aye, she was actually, yeah.
She got an Oscar for it, I think.
Meryl is unbelievable. Big fan.
But it's a great,
I think so.
great film. Every time I make French toast, I always think of the scene in the kitchen with him, and he's at the start he doesn't know how to make the breakfast, and then a couple of months later, after he's been looking after the child, it's just they've got it down to a fine art. It's a brilliant film, fantastic.
We've got Escape from Alcatraz.
Damien and I went to see that in a cinema, and I think it was Sunderland. We were doing this in the middle of a tour.
Yeah.
We were in somewhere, and we weren't doing anything, and we went to see Escape from Alcatraz. Clint. Great film.
Great movie.
Have you been to Alcatraz?
I looked across the water at it. That's not quite the same. Have you been?
So I was in Alcatraz prison in 2017.
What'd you do?
2 to 10? Or
I'm not telling you.
not telling you now.
And it was quite amazing because when we were on the island, we didn't know it, but there was an air show. So it was kind of like, what the hell's going on? It was pretty cool. Like,
You were
but
getting buzzed.
as soon as I got home, I swear to God, as soon as I got back to Derry, it's one of the first films I watched because I hadn't watched it until then. So it was quite amazing because
Cool, man. Yeah.
just on
Was it filmed in Alcatraz?
Yeah, most of it, yeah. And then there was a couple of shots they just do, sort of in a studio.
Haven't seen it since, really, to be honest. You know.
Pretty good. Rocky 2.
Great.
The second.
Yes,
Probably the best one.
I went to see it in the pictures. He's getting carried on. It starts off with they're getting carried on, him and Apollo Creed after the first fight, and they're still
right,
nearly fighting. Great.
Yeah, that's where they have the rematch. The Jerk with Steve Martin.
No,
No?
never saw it. Love Steve
good
Martin, but
Aware
never
of it? I've
saw
never
that.
seen it either. No.
Carl Reiner directed, and then they had a couple hits with Steve Martin after that, like the Dead Man Don't Wear Plaid.
Yeah,
and,
I saw that. That was great.
Man with Two Brains.
No.
Oh, you gotta see that.
First
So good.
Steve Martin film for me, I think, is Roxanne.
Oh,
Yeah, brilliant too. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great
Great
Roxanne.
movie.
Brilliant.
It's an adaptation of that French.
Cyrano de Bergerac, but he's just great. Steve Martin's great.
Steve
Oh,
Martin's brilliant,
he's one of my
There's a
favorites.
new documentary about him in Apple. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it yet because I don't have access to Apple, but I really need to see it because
I haven't seen it either, but I want to watch
I'll
it.
tape it for you.
Please, please, and then lend it to me, and I'll never get back. I'm just mentioning this: the 11th Bond movie, Moonraker.
Yeah.
I was never a Bond fan, you know.
Yeah,
Same
I
here,
know. I
have
think
to
we've
say.
covered this.
No,
I
but,
might
I think just
no
I
one's
think any of us are Bond fans, really.
Nah, not
Does he-
really. I like Craig, whatever you call
Daniels.
Daniel Craig.
I was going to say
Yeah.
Craig David.
Craig David.
Daniel Craig, I think he's good. I've seen one
Yeah.
but after that, I just, nah.
I had to mention it because it's my favorite, like Bond
Moonraker?
intro song. No, the Shirley Bassey Moonraker.
Oh, right.
It's beautiful. Like, get a wee listen to it. Seriously.
Sing it. Come on.
Oh, no.
I couldn't
Sing
tell.
it exactly
I
like
couldn't
Shirley
tell
does.
you
I've COVID, I can't.
Shirley said.
Came in like a moonraker.
No, it's too gorgeous. I can't. I'm not even going to attempt it.
We'll listen to it after.
We've got The Warriors.
Oh,
Yes.
I love that.
I saw that in
Great
the
film.
pictures.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Great soundtrack too, actually.
Ah,
That first track, or was it "Nowhere They Run" by Martha and the?
Oh, right, is that on?
Vandella,
Yeah.
Obviously, because they're running through.
I
New
could
York
never
trying to escape.
understand when it was set, though. Was it
I think
present?
it was
It's kinda
pretty
like
much
a-
set present day to the
Yeah.
time. I
What
think.
always seemed weird to me. It was like
it was kind of like post-apocalyptic
Kind
or
of,
dystopian
yeah.
or something. Yeah. A lot of baseball bats, so you could have dressed up as that for Halloween night. Yeah.
I could be making this up.
The
but I feel
baseball
like
furies.
It comes up at the start saying like New York, 1978 or something. Maybe no.
Oh, really?
It
I don't know.
does.
I could be making that up.
It does say because it's just street gangs.
Do you know?
Superman 2.
That's what we had discussed earlier. Yeah.
Let's skip it. The Wanderers.
Yes.
It's very good.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Don't
Which is very like the other one about the gangs too, kind of.
Yeah, and it's almost like a grittier Grease.
Aye. Yeah.
If that's I don't
know
know.
what
That's
you
why
mean, yeah.
that's why it sits in my head, but it's just a bit grittier and a
Grittier
bit
Grease
more
would be a good
a
album
bit,
name
like a
too,
bit
just-
more grown up too, like, I suppose. But begin this time, Apocalypse Now.
Oh,
Yes, fell asleep. I
you love falling asleep during war movies.
Oh yeah, I remember waking up, and there was something about a big, like a big cow being killed, and I slept through the rest of this war film. You know,
They're showing a different one now.
Charlie Don't Surf and all that. You remember? I always remember lines from it. You know,
Yeah.
and it was great, but I kind of went.
I think the ending's bizarre when Marlon Brando comes on. It's like
Aye.
apparently he wouldn't learn his lines, so he was
Oh,
just
really?
talking gibberish, and they just sort of rolled with it
That's
That's very Brando.
because he was so big at the
Don
time.
Brando.
Aye. They just brought in an ox and just killed the ox, just to take it away from the fact that he didn't know his lines.
So Mad Max, the first.
Never
First
seen
one,
it.
nice, yeah.
Passed me by.
Love that stuff. Love it. Manhattan, Woody Allen,
Yes, very good. With what do you call her?
Diane Keaton.
Hemingway, we girl.
Yeah, is it Marie? No, it's
Margot
not.
Hemingway, is it?
It could be.
Or is
And Meryl Streep, isn't that too?
Is she?
In a minor role, but
Aye, no, Manhattan's great.
we also had Meatballs.
Oh,
Which
I love
kinda-
that. With Bill Murray.
Yeah.
That was great.
Kinda-
Were they camp counselors?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
That's all I've got.
It sort of kickstarted that whole thing, that whole collaboration of like Ivan Reitman and Harold Ramis and stuff. So it ended up doing like Stripes and then Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah.
like, so it's that. And then left the big one for the end. Alien.
Yes, that was great. And
So-
the stomach bit was just the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually meant to go, here's a clue. I forgot to do it.
Yeah.
Here's a clue. I
Amazing.
would have said heartbeat.
Heartbeat.
That's what I was
Trying to
thinking.
work.
Why
There's
did-
bound to be other ones in '79.
Oh, there was quite a lot, like, but nothing is kind of.
No, nothing is remembered.
They were the biggies.
I can't remember them. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, that's all the movies.
It is indeed.
Well, some of them.
So that's some of the movies. That's the important
highlights.
movies. TV shows of the day. Dukes of Hazzard debuted. Yeah. But I remember about that. My dad had the same color as your top, orangey tanny colored Cavalier, Vauxhall
really?
Cavalier. So obviously the Dukes of Hazzard was out, so he used to get so annoyed because me and my mate were like bouncing over the bonnet, and jumping on windows and stuff. And
Very good.
The Harveys of Hazard.
yeah. Happy Days was on, Charlie's Angels, MASH, Blankety Blank.
Soap. Do you remember Soap?
So I don't remember Soap. No.
Soap was an American it was a takeoff of Soaps. Billy Crystal was in it.
Oh, no way. I must have a look at that. I love Billy
I
Crystal.
always remember remember watching Soap whenever I was in London in 1979. Yeah,
God.
definitely.
Oh, wow.
It's great.
So I think that's pretty much us wrapped up. We could sit here all night and talk,
could,
but as we
could
said
indeed.
before we started, there's Champions League football on tonight. We'll catch the second half. That has been an absolute pleasure,
Oh,
Mickey.
thank
Thank
you.
you
I
so
enjoyed it
much.
too.
That was brilliant.
I
And
think I did get excited there. I must admit.
Good.
good.
I
Yeah,
get too excited.
we could.
Never too excited. Just the right level of excitement. Thank you very much.
We could have chatted all night. And thanks again, Brendy and Sean, co-host.
Alright.
You're welcome.
And of course, Mickey, thank you.
Mickey,
It was an
good. Thank you.
absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, wherever your social media is. Check us out. Check out our podcast. Share it with your friends. Thank you very much. This has been Mind the Time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Slam.